A great mini road trip from Ruidoso is a cruise along the Billy the Kid Scenic Byway. Packed with history that inspired countless books and movies, and legends that have grown stronger with time, this trip invokes a sense of what it meant to really live in the Wild West. My first stop along the route is at Fort Stanton, a fort initially established in 1855 to help protect early settlers from raids by the Apache Indians. I met up with Larry Pope, the fort's site manager, to learn more about the earlier life and times of this fascinating place.
This place is like a whole time capsule. I feel like I'm in another era.
You are. Come see what we've got.
Okay. So what's the historical significance of Fort Stanton?
Fort Stanton has got a long history, and if you look at the architecture of all the buildings that's surrounding, it's indicative of the many different eras that we have here.
The fort, in its many incarnations, operated as a tuberculosis hospital and as an internment site for German merchant seamen during World War II.
This building here was built in 1855, originally as a barracks for the fort at that time. During the hospital years, it was converted into a dining hall and kitchen facility. But this is one of our newest reconstructions. What we've done is we brought the visitor back into 1858 by remaking that barracks. Well, this is an example of one of the bunks that we have here at the fort. And this is actually a 4-man bunk. 2 men on top and 2 men on bottom.
In that tight space.
In that tight little space, they would sleep head to toe. What you would get is extra body heat. You get to share blankets and everything. And this is where the term bunkie comes from, if you ever heard that one.
Situated along the picturesque Rio Bonito, you can see why this land was such a draw for early settlers, and why so many travelers still venture to this part of Lincoln County today. And as much as I hate to leave, I'm excited for my next stop, Lincoln, New Mexico, the old stomping grounds of one of the state's most notorious historical characters, Billy the Kid. As soon as you pull into Lincoln, it's as if you are stepping back in time. The town is perfectly preserved, and you can't help but to feel like you're going to run into Pat Garrett, John Chisholm, or Billy the Kid and the Regulators on any given corner. This town was the hot seat for the Lincoln County War, a range war between rival factions in 1878 in what was then the New Mexico Territory. The amount of history here is mind-boggling. Thankfully, I was able to have the monument's manager, Gary Cousins, to show me around and break some of it down for me.
Lincoln is one of the 8 historic sites in the state of New Mexico.
Gary started off the tour with one of the most popular sites in Lincoln, the Tunsil Store. John Tunsil was a prominent rancher and merchant whose operation rivaled that of James Dolan, just down the road. Tunsil had Billy the Kid and the Regulators on his side, but Dolan had an army of his own, and the rivalry would go down in history.
Tunsil said there was a lot of money to be made in Lincoln County, and he intended to make half of it. But he underestimated James Dolan. And about 20-30 miles southeast of here on February 18th, 1878, Tunsil was murdered out in the middle of nowhere, and that's what started the Lincoln County War.
That was the spark.
That was the spark. Billy the Kid was in this window right back up here with Ollinger's double-barrel shotgun, and Ollinger came to this point right here, and Billy the Kid leaned out the window and said, "Hello, Bob," and gave him both barrels of his own shotgun.
So at the end of the day, while the town may appear as it did back in the 1800s, thankfully the Wild West antics are no longer a threat. Fort Stanton and Lincoln aren't the only highlights on this stretch of road. Be sure to check out the architecturally captivating Spencer Theater, as well as taking time to visit Smokey Bear Historical Park in Capitan. After being rescued from the Capitan Mountains as a cub in 1950, Smokey went on to become the living symbol for forest fire prevention. And his final resting place is right here in Capitan. A wonderful place for children of all ages, this site features exhibits, educational programs, and gardens to enjoy. Before you hit the road, here's some things to keep in mind. Check out the calendar of events at Fort Stanton for military reenactments and candlelight tours. The Lincoln Historic Site is open 7 days a week, but on Sundays you can get free admission with your New Mexico ID. Children under 16 are always admitted for free.